I think a week doesn't go by. I know that not a week goes by when someone doesn't stop me or call me or email me and say, boy, I really enjoy listening to Chris Kopff on your talk show. Well, you're in luck. This is that day, Thursday. Stay tuned.
Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, The Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
By the way, Dr. Kopff, University of Colorado Boulder scholar, fluent in 5 languages, etc. It's author, lecturer. In addition to that, I want to tell you something. Who's the president of the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church?
His name is Matthew Harrison.
All right. Well, I've been trying to get him on the air for a long time.
Yes.
And it looks like we're going to do it.
That is terrific. Good. Well, send me an email when it happens so I can listen in.
Oh, sure.
I know I can listen in after the event, too.
Yeah. No, he just got back from Europe, and he's, according to his appointment secretary, he's kind of catching up. But as soon as that's over, have him on within the next week or two, okay?
Well, that'll be terrific. He's probably been visiting Wittenberg, which is the Lutheran equivalent of the Vatican.
Yes.
That's where it all started.
Listen, I'm sorry. I can't help it, but what did they discover in Wittenberg? I'm sorry. That's not fair.
You're going to try to provoke a debate
No,
here, aren't you?
No. But never mind. I'll tell you off the air. Huh?
Everything you say gets reported to Cardinal Dolan,
No, this is kind of funny, but I'll tell you off the air. Lutheran is Chris, Catholic am I. There was a disagreement here about 400 years ago, and we're still working it out. With 4 or 5? Well, it's going on 5, isn't it? 500 years. Yeah. All right.
It's going to be there.
Listen.
This is not relevant to our thing, but the Catholic Campus Ministry at the University of Colorado and their Thomas Aquinas Center sponsored a debate on the death penalty last week, and it was a Catholic Monsignor, Stuart Swetland, opposing the death penalty, and I defending it.
Oh, okay. Who won, by the way?
We did not have a vote at the end, although people had a half hour to ask questions from the audience, and they asked terrific questions. I was very proud of the University of Colorado in that regard. But it was interesting. It was a very civil debate, granted how, controversial the issue is. And basically, I was able to say I was so glad to be invited by the Thomas Aquinas Center to defend the position of Thomas Aquinas.
Great line.
I thought it was a good line. And by the way, the Monsignor did not deny that at all. He was quite clear that we Catholics have a lot to learn from the secular world, and one of the things we learned is that death penalty is wrong. And I thought, boy, I got to send this out to all my Lutheran friends.
Well, now let me ask you this:
years, right?
A lot of times when there's a debate at that level of scholars, you may or may not believe what you're really, defending or arguing for or against. Doesn't matter. You just take that position. Is this really your position, and was that really his position?
Very good question. By the way, a colleague of mine from physics came up to me at the end and said, great debate, both of you did a great job, but you don't really believe that, do you? And I don't want to speak on behalf of any Catholic Monsignor as to what he really believes. He gave a very coherent and what sounded like what he really believed. And I will say that, I believe, the Christian tradition and the Bible, and they're very, not to mention the moral feelings of the average American and average European, too. Because even though Europe doesn't have the death penalty, that's not because the majority of citizens don't want it. The majority want it, just as in this country. It was imposed on them the same way the EU was imposed on them, on and on. I mean, I know Italy very well, and it drove the far right-wing party crazy because the Catholic Party and the Communist Party got together to get rid of the death penalty, and the far right-wing party in Italy, which has a distinguished heritage going back to Benito Mussolini, on the issues, they would have a majority of citizens in their favor on issue after issue, like the death penalty, like protecting their economy, like immigration, and then people would still vote for other parties. It drove them nuts.
Well, that happens in this country. You know, you stop, you stop and say, how do you stand on abortion? Oh, I'm against that, especially after X weeks or right from the beginning. Where are you on gay marriage? Oh, I don't think it is a marriage. I'm against that. Where do you stand on more and more abortions? Oh, no. What about legalized marijuana? No, I don't want any more legalized marijuana. How do you vote? I vote Democrat. I mean, I hear it all the time. That's what the Democrats stand for, huh? What?
Yes, it's absolutely standard. It happens in Europe just like it happens here, and it drives you nuts.
Yeah. I think it happens everywhere. I've got Irish cousins that I sometimes disagree with. I say, well, why are you voting for so-and-so? Well, because I'm a member of that party. Well, yeah, but that party's against everything you're for. Well, I know, but I've been a member of that party since, oh, my Lord. All right, by the way, I was going to wait until tomorrow to spring this on Heinemann, but he doesn't hear our show. He's teaching on Thursdays at this time. So I'll tell you and then I'll tell him. I'm officially getting out of the Republican Party because a lot of people think I'm Republican, and I'm not. I'm going to join, and I really don't want to do it for a couple of reasons, the Constitution Party. I mean, I believe in what the Constitution Party stands for. But the trouble is, they'll be down here knocking on my door, asking me to run for office or make contributions. Republicans leave me alone but I'm getting out of the Republican Party because I'm tired of people saying, oh, you're just a Republican. I'm not a Republican, and I'm not a member of the Conservative Party either, by the way.
Is that not a reliable party anymore?
No. Used to be.
When I lived in New York, it was really the Irish, conservative Irish party.
Yeah.
And their greatest candidate was James Buckley.
Jim Buckley, Charlie Rice, who teaches at Notre Dame, or did. I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
They were the backbone of it, but eventually they started getting jobs in government, and you know what that does. That corrupts everybody, yeah. So, okay, now let's get on to the latest screw-up by the Republicans. They're going to run on Obamacare this fall, and apparently they don't realize that most people haven't got a clue about Obamacare. I mean, the polls show this. They're against it. Most people are against it, but they don't know what it is. And if they found out what it is, they'd really be against it because it's socialized medicine. That's where he wants to go. However, the Republicans are being out-jockeyed, as they usually are, because Obama's going to push this past the 2014 and probably the 2016 election before we get stuck with this terrible thing called Obamacare. So the people will not be livid and upset in this fall, and they'll reelect the same awful people who gave it to us in the beginning.
Well, the great thing about, yes, I entirely agree with you about Obamacare, and that's why they sold out on the debt ceiling, in which John Boehner got 28 of his own people to vote for him, and every single Democrat voted for him. And his excuse was, well, they're going to blame the Democrats. Well, nobody's blaming the Democrats except John Boehner does. Yeah. John Boehner should understand that.
Yeah.
So then we're going to go on to Obamacare. And the great thing is that because of President Obama, we have a much better country we used to have because the president can change any law anytime he wants to.
Absolutely. He makes Benito Mussolini look like a piker. He can do whatever he wants, right?
Honestly, Mussolini used to put things through the legislature. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I hope will not cause a debate, but yesterday was the anniversary of the day that Mussolini and Pius XI's foreign secretary signed the Concordat that legalized the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church recognized Italy as a real country. Yeah. But it wasn't ratified till a few months later because Mussolini insisted that the Italian Parliament vote on it. Uh-huh. Well, that's much more democratic than Barack Obama.
Yeah.
I mean, Barack Obama has changed this law. Apparently, it's
27 times so far. Yeah, he'll do it again.
You got to keep, this little thing on the side of your calendar. How often he's amended this law without going through Congress, without going through the amendment process, and the Republicans are running around saying, "What? This is against the law." It's not against the law in our country because the president. And he said this to Francois Hollande in so many words. I'm president. I can do what I want.
Yep, he did. Yep.
And how the people at Fox have the gall to say nasty things about Vladimir Putin, who really, compared to Obama, as you say, Mussolini is an extremely constitutional figure compared to Obama, and Vladimir Putin is practically James Madison compared to Barack Obama.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
He's either Putin or Mussolini. It's just that when you compare him to Obama, who changes the laws off the top of his head in a few cases.
Well, he's going to save those Democrats. And they will. They'll be saved. The very people who stuck you with Obamacare will be saved, and they'll do it again. But let's move on. Mr. Clapper, tell the people who Clapper is and why what he said this week is so terribly significant.
Okay, well, James Clapper Jr. is the Director of National Intelligence. He's the guy who's in charge on keeping an eye on our enemies all over the world. And he was talking to Congress. He reports regularly to Congress, and usually he gives the least dishonest answer he can. He wants to explain that about a case. So Jim Imhoff, who's the senator, one of the two senators from Oklahoma, Republican, asked him in so many words, is Al-Qaeda on the run? That was the president's slogan when he ran for re-election. Osama bin Laden is dead and Al-Qaeda's on the run. Jim Imhoff asked him, is Al-Qaeda on the run and on the path to defeat? And for once, Clapper gave an absolutely direct answer. He answered, quotes, no. It is morphing and franchising itself, and not only here, but all over the world. And his the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, answered, they are not on the run, and they are not on the path to defeat.
Which shows that Obama lied about that. And but how long will Clapper remain in his job? Well, he doesn't fire anybody, so I suppose Clapper's all right.
Well, I mean, things have gotten so bad in this country that the Director of National Intelligence is telling the truth to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least he used to lie, and we could say, oh, well, we don't know, and we can't tell. And no, he tells them the truth, because there's nothing we can do. The whole thing, of course, about Al-Qaeda is it is like certain kinds of cancer. It doesn't stay the same. It survives by what he said, really interestingly, morphing and franchising itself. It creates all these little groups around, and they are sort of the central connecting group that helps encourage them, and they give them different names in different countries, but they're still Al-Qaeda. They're doing what Al-Qaeda does. And, of course, they now control Fallujah in Iraq. They have they have groups all over the Near East. I mean, we are much worse off than we were 10 years ago, and it wasn't a great situation then.
No. But, listen, I know that the trouble with the world is apathy, but who cares? And that's one of my favorite expressions. The fact of the matter is people get up in this country, and they do in all countries, I think. They go to work, they try to provide for their family and their kids, and the mothers try to keep the family together. It's out of da-ba-da-ba-doo. They can't spend a lot of time watching these liars, thieves, and generally speaking, outlaws running the country and the state. They can't do it. And the media, of course, when it comes to Obama, the media truly is state-controlled.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's really something.
It's I don't think there's any precedent, huh?
It's pitiful to hear us say that we're better than Russia or the old Soviet Union. We were exactly the same. We have a controlled state media.
Well, in Russia, you can still print freely. It may not be smart, but it's not even done here. So, except for one network, and that network doesn't have as many viewers as Jon Stewart. So, there you go. No wonder the people don't know. We'll take a break. Chris Kopff will be my guest. On the other half of this break, Chris Kopff, University of Colorado. When we get back, we're going to talk about more stupid moves the Republicans have made. They tell you, you got to give it to old Grandma Reed. He may not be the nicest man in the world. He may not be the most honest man in the world, but he sure does outfox those Republicans. We'll be back. We'll be back in a minute. Dr. Chris Kopff, University of Colorado, was our regular Thursday guest. And we've talked about lies and more lies, outlaws and greater outlaws. You know, there was a study this week by Gallup about the states where you have the most jobs, North Dakota being number one. You know what number two was? District of Columbia. I mean, the District of Columbia is a dump. But the government's there, and they just keep hiring. And you ever been in a traffic jam? Have you ever driven in traffic around Washington, 40 miles out in any direction, and you see all these government workers going in every day? It's just a mess. And then when they can't get in because there's a snowstorm or whatever, nothing happens. Everything just goes on like
Well, the thing is, they don't need a snowstorm, because you and I live in places where there are real snowstorms.
Yeah.
It's an inch or two.
Yeah,
They closed down the government. When the government got closed down because of the budget debate, this was the end of the world and the country was going to come to an end, then they closed it down all the time because of an inch or two of snow.
That's right.
And nothing happens. We don't live in a worse world because the government gets shut down.
Listen, if you
people think, I don't know, but it's absurd.
If you talk to an honest government worker, and there are some, and they'll tell you, and I've done this in Washington, I've talked to them, they'll tell you, what I do is truly unnecessary, but it's a good paying job, has a wonderful benefit at the end, and I have a strong union representation. But if I didn't come to work for the next 3 months, nothing would happen. It would be all right. They'll tell you that. They'll tell you that.
I mean, this is why we have no reason to be borrowing money. And of course, John Boehner had this great idea of having a clean raising of the debt ceiling. So Obama can spend all the money he wants, which he spends on his campaigns and on the campaigns to reelect Democrats. That's what most of this is. The IRS is completely out of control and is now in the process of shutting down all the conservative groups that would be involved in getting out the vote and things like that.
Yeah, they're still doing it. In fact, they've increased it.
Meanwhile, they don't touch unions.
No.
They don't touch the Chamber of Commerce, which is not our friend in many areas, like immigration and global free trade.
No, they're not.
And meanwhile, these small group of patriots around the country who have groups that are 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, but have a ability to get the vote out far in excess of the money they spend, because as we've seen in Colorado, where we got rid of 2 Democratic state legislators on the issue of gun control, although every newspaper in the state opposed us, and the former mayor of New York sent hundreds of thousands in. It's really interesting, but I mean, we've got to do this without tax exemption because the IRS is opposed. And they are now going to put in a rule that retroactively legalizes their illegal attacks on American citizens.
Yeah, most people don't know that either. Yeah, they're going to do that, right?
Yes, they're going to pass a rule saying it's everything we did that was illegal. It's okay. It's legal now.
It's okay now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's retroactive. It goes into effect retroactively.
Listen, here's what
Lois Lerner is going to come back, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, she probably never left. Really. I mean, they're still emailing her. But listen. What I would like to do is go down to New Jersey and get that Democrat committee that's trying to destroy Christie and say, look, guys, I know you're for sale, so how much would it take for you to turn your guns on the IRS? Because the Republicans are not going to do it. And the IRS is a far more dangerous thing than closing any bridge in and out of New York City. Far more dangerous. But are the Republicans doing anything? No, not really, no. Well, immigration, we're down to about a minute. And you live in a state where you have hospitals closing and ERs filled with illegals and so forth. And here we have, finally, Boehner pulled out. And some Republicans I know say, oh, it's going to be bad. The Hispanics will never vote for us now. No, they didn't vote for you anyway. They're not going to vote for you.
They're not going to vote because they are in principled opposition. That's
Absolutely.
all. They're in favor of a large state.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they're used to. And they're used to the nanny state, and they're going to want to keep it, right? But You know, it's a pity. I know that there are some guys in Washington, not in government, but observers of government, and I won't mention their names, but I'm going to tell you if I did, you'd know who they were. And they've told me privately that they want to start a third party because the Republicans are worthless. They're better than the Democrats in terms of abuses, but they're not a good opposition party, at least not with John Boehner and Mitch McConnell. They'd like to start a third party. Tough to do that.
The raising the debt ceiling with no limits on it got 28 Republicans and every single Democrat. Mm-hmm. He's effectively the leader of the Democratic caucus.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was talking to a guy who worked on Capitol Hill. This was off the record, or off the air, rather. And I said to him, why Boehner? And he said, and this guy worked for the Republicans on Capitol Hill. And he said, listen, he gives the best parties. He's the most likable guy you'd ever want to meet. Seriously.
Yeah. No. He gets along with people.
Yeah.
The problem is he's not articulate in expressing our views.
No. Well,
but
no one's...
he's usually able to create a majority by being a nice guy.
Yep, there you go. Well, listen, I'm a nice guy, you're a nice guy, but no one wants us to run the government. And we got some people in there that aren't nice guys, that they are running things.
They're running it,
yeah. Our time is gone. Chris Kopff, we'll have you back next week and see what crises we can talk about then. All right. Thanks, Chris.